Back, everyone, to the design track of the first day of Present to Succeed. I hope you had some rest, maybe took some coffee, or you managed to go through the network section, the expo, all the booths of our sponsors with amazing offers, as I already mentioned. We are again going into the topic of slide design, of course. And I have here with me Damon Nofar, who is the founder of Slides Agency, where they're helping clients like Louis Vuitton, Uber, and Audi, and also startups make their presentations more impactful. What I really like about their agency, it's actually the motto, and it's no coincidence that that's the name of the session that Damon is going to do for us today. It's that bad slides kill good ideas. So, hi Damon, very nice to see you here with us.
Hey Eva, thank you so much for that lovely introduction.
We are so looking forward to your session. Everyone, please make sure that you are putting your questions into the Q&A tab, because afterwards Damon is going to take some of those depending on how much time we have, and we're going to answer those. So Damon, now it's off to you.
Brilliant. Actually, that introduction was much better than mine, so I'm going to skip mine and jump straight into my deck. Look at this video here. This is my daughter putting on her jacket some weeks ago. I have no idea where she learned this, probably YouTube or the kindergarten. But when I first saw this, I thought, I've been doing it wrong this whole time. And that's the feeling I want to give you guys after this short talk. I want to show you a different way of treating slides, and hopefully you walk away with some practical tips that you can use to step up your slide game. You should also try putting on your jacket like this. I've been doing it ever since. It's amazing. So bad slides kill good ideas. This catchy phrase actually sums up my whole talk. It's the fact that oftentimes we rely too much on the quality of our idea, our product, our service, and we forget how we actually present it. I believe there are a ton of good ideas or great ideas that are hidden behind bullet points, blurry images, and just plain bad slides. And I hope that after this talk, you view your slides differently and start using them as an actual tool to help you convey your idea. Actually, when I was preparing for this talk, I had a couple of other titles in mind. One was, it's not what you say, it's how you make them feel. This is a good one. Oftentimes we focus only on what we want to say as a brand or as a speaker, and we forget the impression we leave behind. Did we overwhelm the audience? Was it clear enough? Did it make sense? Here's another one. Your idea is worth nothing if delivered poorly. This is good as well. Think about it. If you can't convey or transfer your idea to others, then what's it worth? Not much, right? It's just a good idea in your head. This is also a good one. Good slides will get you there faster. The better you package your idea, the better you present it, the faster it will be received by others and also shared with their peers. It's as simple as that. But I decided to go with bad slides kill good ideas because it's much more catchy and it really encapsulates everything I want to say. I see people struggling daily with their slides. I work with clients from different industries. Usually slides are something that's prepared in a rush. It's a secondhand thing, something we do with just a few days notice. I'm going to challenge that notion and hopefully encourage you to put more focus on your slides. So who am I and why should you even listen to me? Well, my job is to help brands communicate their ideas. That's the generic description of my job. The real description is that I help brands turn their uninspiring bullet point slides into impactful visuals. Some would also say that I bring power back to the point. See what I did there? PowerPoint. I can't see if you're laughing or rolling your eyes, but I'm going to assume you're laughing because that makes me feel better. So a good presentation consists of story, slides, and delivery. If it wasn't clear enough, I'm going to cover the slides part. But I want to remind you that this conference has people covering both story and delivery. And the whole idea behind this conference is that you should pick the key insights from different sessions and put together a great presentation. Take a look at this quote. It's the idea that matters, not the slides. Slides are just there to support me as the speaker. This is the general idea we have about slides. It's a supporting aid for the speaker, right? It helps you with the structure and flow of your presentation. And for many, it's also a great way to just read off of the slides. But this is the wrong way of looking at it. Slides are there to support your audience. They're a visual aid for your audience. The purpose of your slides is to help you make an impact with your audience. It is to help you better communicate your idea. Let me show you an example. So to the left here, depending on if the screen is mirrored or not, to the left you have slides as visual aid for the speaker, and on the right I'm going to show that same slide as a visual aid for the audience. Take a look at this slide. This is a great slide for the speaker, right? You have all the talking points written out. You basically don't have to memorize anything. You can just read off of your slide and you have the whole flow there. But not so great for the audience, is it? It's quite overwhelming. It's dull. It's not inspiring. Let's see how that same slide can look as a visual aid for the audience. It could look something like this. Shorter bullet points, more concise key points, maybe a full screen visual of a great leader to reflect that idea. So it's the same concept, same idea, same topic, but it's just presented with different people in mind. Let's look at one more. Here we have another slide as a visual aid for the speaker. Very text heavy, all the talking points are written out, not very inspiring. How could that same slide look as a visual aid for the audience? It could look something like this. A much more visual slide, a build-up animation to not overwhelm the audience. Basically, we can control their attention while we're presenting rather than shoving all our points in their face straight at once. Listen to this guy. One does not simply make a PowerPoint without knowing their audience. He knows what he's talking about. Before I jump into the tips and the practical stuff, I have one last point I want to make, which is about the value of good presentations. Let me share a short story from last year. Last year, a team in Denmark reached out to us. They're called Linus. They're a scale-up company, and they were looking to expand into the US market. So they needed quite a bit of funding to support that growth. We had a chat with the team. We liked the product. We liked the vibe of the team. So we decided to take on the project. Some months later, we saw this article here. Linus lands 50 million euros in Denmark's biggest ever Series A round. 50 million euros. To my American colleagues, that's $57 million. And obviously, we were ecstatic that we had a tiny part in this team's successful funding round. And we felt like anyone else would feel. We should have charged more. I mean, $57 million? I'm obviously joking. The Linus team were absolutely great to work with, but it's just to prove the point that good slides do matter. All presentations are not worth 50 million euros, but if you think about it, if you think about all the sales pitches, about all the partnership pitches that are being made, those relationships and businesses that are made based on those presentations are definitely worth in the hundreds of thousands or in the millions. So I hope I've made it clear that a good slide design do matter and it can help you close more business. So in this next section, I'm going to cover these 4 topics to help you prepare better slides. Let's jump straight into visual hierarchy. If you don't know what that is, visual hierarchy is the principle of arranging information to show their order of importance. Here's a typical slide that has 0 visual hierarchy. The content is all over the place. We have some logos, we have a lot of text, and there's no clear visual hierarchy here. Here's another one that we're going to redesign. This is for a client we worked with last year, or some years ago actually, Uber Eats. And if you look at it at first glance, it doesn't feel too heavy on the eye. It has lots of white space, but it definitely lacks visual hierarchy. And that is because the images on the right here, they occupy pretty much the same space as the text on the left. The text on the left doesn't have any clear highlights. Everything is the same size. So there's no guidance as to what are the key points here. So I'm going to do a slow transition here so you can see how we create visual hierarchy. Take a look at this. This is an alternative way of showing that same information. And here you can see that we have a clear visual hierarchy. We have one big image that grabs the attention straight away. Then our attention goes to the big title with the green highlight. And then we have the supporting bullet points below that supports that main statement. And this is how you create a clear slide. This is something you should keep in mind every time you create slides. You need to keep the visual hierarchy in mind. Let's look at, if you put it side by side, you can see that it becomes much more obvious. And the main takeaways here are: visual hierarchy helps your audience get the gist of your message quickly. One great image is better than multiple good ones. You remember in the before slide, we had 2 images that were average. If you choose one good image, it's much better. Paragraphs of text are for documents, not presentations. So when you're typing out your talking points, keep in mind that if you're doing a live pitch, you want to keep it short and concise. But if you're sending out a document and the presentation needs to stand on its own, then for sure you need to have more descriptive text. Let's look at one more example on visual hierarchy. Here you have another one. Lots of stuff going on here. We have infographics at the bottom. We have a lot of red highlights. We have some logos in the corner. And again, it's lacking visual hierarchy. My attention goes all over the place and I don't know where to look. So let's do another slow transition to see how we can create some hierarchy. Using the same principle as before, we're using a big visual to grab the interest. Then we move the focus to the main title. And then we have a click animation to bring in the supporting infographics. So here we're using both visuals, typography, and animation to create a visual hierarchy. And the takeaway here is too many highlights can be confusing. You remember the previous slide had tons of red highlights. That can be confusing, then you lose the point. One strong message is better than multiple vague ones. And visuals directly related to the main message help memorability. So you see here the guy looking at the label, it's directly connected to the title here. So that's visual hierarchy. I hope I made it clear that this is super important. This is something we often forget, but if you keep that in mind when you're developing slides, you will definitely be ahead of the game. Next up, typography. This one might surprise some of you, because when we think about design or presentation design, we often put focus on the visuals, the images, the graphics. And I would argue that typography is actually the most important aspect of design, since especially presentation design, since most of our slides are made up of text, right? And you probably already know that we got 2 typography masters in this conference. The guys from Font Fabric are here. So make sure you check out their session later this afternoon. I will be looking at that because I know that they know 100 times more than me about typography. So let's just pretend I'm the opening act for them. Your typography builds brand recognition. Your choice of typeface, the way you treat the size, the weights, everything matters and gives an impression of you as a brand. For example, when we see a Nike ad, we can all recognize their all caps bold font because that's basically the Nike character. The same way we can recognize a high-end brand like Mercedes based on their serif typeface. So when you're a big brand and you fall back on Calibri, which is the default font in PowerPoint, you're actually doing your brand a big disservice. Treat your type with care because it's strongly attached to your brand. Your typography reflects your personality. Whether you're a brand or an individual speaker, your choice of a typeface family says something about you. Just like with Nike, they're reflecting a bold, progressive, strong brand with their typography. And if you, on the other hand, want to be more down to earth, more friendly, you might use a rounded typeface. No matter what you go with, keep in mind that it does reflect your personality. And finally, your typography influences decision-making. Think about it. Typography has a profound effect on how we digest and perceive information. For example, if you look at a slide like this, that's filled with bullet points, no visual hierarchy, no structure, this will be received differently if we compare it to a slide with like this. It's the same content, just presented with different treatment of the typography. On the second slide, on the bottom one, you have clear typography, a clear structure. That will help you get the message quicker, and thus you can make a decision on whether you want to invest your time or money into it. So it's definitely tied to decision making. When we see a slide like this, we all know that this is probably from an Apple keynote, right? We have this characteristic sans serif font with their big visuals. Could you imagine them using something like this, like Comic Sans, or something like this? That's not really, that doesn't feel too Apple keynote-y, does it? Imagine Tim Cook on stage with this. I think if he would do this, we would have a scenario where Steve Jobs would call in from the grave and would like a chat with him. So let's try to avoid mixing up types or typographies. Practical tips. How can you apply it to your slides? Let's do an example here. Basically, I'm gonna look at this slide here with the typography and we're gonna see how we can make it better. Let's start with the title. Here we have feature 1, big data at your fingertips. And you can see that the highlight has been made on the feature 1 part with a blue text and bolder font. This is not the best way of doing this because I would like the focus to be on the actual title where it says big data at your fingertips. So let's restructure this. You can see here, the subtle difference makes a big difference here. I just changed the highlight in the title and I put the feature 1 part as less prominent because that's really not a focus here. That's just a subheadline. Now, what can we do with the bullet points? You see here we have 3 bullets with some text here. And if we actually properly space the typography and align it with the title, we don't even need the bullets. Take a look at this. So all I'm doing here is dropping the circle of bullet points. I'm aligning my text with the title and I'm creating some spacing so that it breathes more, it has more white space. You can see the difference here. It's subtle, but it does make a difference. And once you're at this stage, then you can play with the typography even more. You can decide whether you want to go with lighter font weights to give a different impression of your brand, or you can go with bold fonts like this. That's all up to you and your brand and the feeling you want to portray. So you see here, side by side, it becomes obvious. It's very subtle, but if you learn these tips and tricks on how you can tweak your typography, it will look better. Let's do one more example. Here we have lots of text going on, and the main issue with this slide is that we have text running across the whole horizontal width of the slide. When you have long rows of text, it becomes overwhelming. So we're going to take the same slide, but we're going to restructure it without removing any text. And in this case, we just dropped it into 3 columns instead. This gives us room to play with iconography or even images, and it's just a much better layout compared to the previous one. It doesn't feel as heavy. Now, I obviously don't recommend presenting with a text, with a slide that's this text heavy. If you do, make sure you have build up animations, 1 column by column. And you're probably thinking, pew, that's a lot, Damon. What should I remember? So let me give you a couple of takeaways. A good typeface makes things easier. A bad typeface needs more work. And I put the word bad in quotation mark because there are no bad typefaces really. There's lots of work going on in the background to create these, so I don't want any problems with font or type designers. Look at this font here, or this typeface, I should say. This is Calibri, the default PowerPoint typeface. You probably recognize it because this is what you see when you open up PowerPoint. This is also Calibri. This is also Calibri. Guess what? This is also Calibri. This is to show that there are no bad typefaces. It all depends on how you treat it and the tips and tricks you take away on how you can work with typography. Except for Comic Sans, that one is horrible. Takeaway 2, don't overlook spacing and alignment. That's where the subtle magic is. This one is super important, and I think most non-designers struggle with this most. Look at this slide. We have 3 columns of text. It feels quite heavy, and the reason is we don't have too much white space between these columns. A subtle change here creates a much better slide and less heavy on the eye. So I just created a little bit of more spacing between these columns, as you can see. Here's another one. Margins help with readability. Look at these 3 columns here. We have text in yellow boxes, and the text is quite close to the edge here, which does not help with readability. So if we just create a subtle change here, this slide will be much better. And this applies to both text in elements, text on images, on your slide. Don't put it too close to the edge, because that will make the readability harder. And finally, good alignment ties it all together. When you look at this slide, you might feel that something looks off, but you can't put a finger on it. And that's usually the alignment. Look at this. We have unaligned text, icons, everything is all over the place. If we do this subtle change where everything is perfectly aligned, it will look so much better. Subtle things, but if you learn these tricks on how you can align things better and quicker in PowerPoint, Keynote, or whatever you use, your slides will look so much better. Okay, we covered visual hierarchy, which is the main principle you should keep in mind. We covered typography, which is the second thing, and now we're going to jump into visuals, which I know a lot of people struggle with. Take a look at this guy. Happy guy working with documents while staring straight into your soul. The key to success is to never use a stock image like this. This image represents e-commerce perfectly, right? No, it doesn't. It sucks. I'm not going to comment on this one. I hope we know where I'm going with this. This is every female customer service agent. This is every male doctor. I wish. And this is working from home. Actually, this one is quite accurate, so I like this one. But for the rest of the images, just don't. The reason is that these images are cringy, they're overused, they don't feel authentic. These are the typical stock photos we see on the top of Google results, and we should really try to avoid these types of images in our presentations because it's very hard to relate to them. So how do you actually choose good images? Well, you should use authentic images, images that feel natural, although they're staged and they're with models, they feel natural. Images that we can relate to in our everyday life, whether that's an office setting or you're out in a cafeteria with your friend, whatever it is, it should feel relatable. Depending on your audience, you should also use funny images. This can be a good way of grabbing people's interest and making an impact. Obviously, you have to be careful here on who the audience is. I might not use the dog with the goggles on a high stakes important meeting. Abstract images are great. They're great for reflecting complex topics and other stuff that is hard to find images for. So let's do a little game here. I have a statement. It says, our services adapt to your needs. And I'm going to try to find a visual that fits this statement. The first image could be a puzzle piece coming together. Quite typical, a lot of people use it, but if you find the right image, it could work well. We could go with an image that's a generic image from our industry. So imagine this is the e-commerce space and we want to show a merchant preparing a package. Then we could go with something like this. We could also get creative and use a chameleon to show how they adapt to different environments. I'm not saying which one is right or wrong. I'm just trying to get your creativity going in terms of visuals. Let's do another one. 2022 will be a big challenge for our business. How do we show that with a visual? We could go with a black and white shot of an office setting to show that this dark feeling and then the dark time ahead of us. We could go with a fun image of a child stepping up to a big challenge. Or we could go with this mountain climber, the guy everyone uses, right? This image is quite overused as well. And the point I want to make here is that whenever you go for images that feel overused, try to find a different angle to it. So you could go with the same idea, same concept of climbing, but you find a different image, something that's not as overused. Let's finish off with one more. We have a strong collaborative culture. How do we show that? We could go with the fist bump. The fist bump never fails. This shows that they have a strong collaborative culture. We could go with a sports setting like this, a rowing team. They show a strong collaborative culture. Or we could go with these guys, right? They seem to have a strong white teeth, no, culture, I mean. The takeaway is that your visuals should represent your brand, but also your audience. Sometimes we focus only on what we want to represent as a brand, and we forget who's our audience. Can they relate to these images as well, which is key. While we're at it, I'm going to give you a bonus tip on icons. I know a lot of you use icons to visualize ideas, so I would like to say that the most common mistake I see people do with icons is that they mix different style of icons. And this is a very typical mistake I see. If we go to the big brand websites, you'll see it there as well. And you can see here, we have 3 different types of icons. There are a million more, but you can see on the left, we have a thin outlined icon with rounded corners. In the middle, we have a similar icon, but it's thicker lines and it's sharp corners. And on the right, we have a filled solid icon. And if you mix these, you get something like this. And you might think, Damon, that looks great. Yeah, it looks okay, but if I show you how it should look, like this, you'll see that it looks much better when they follow the same style, same weight of the lines, so forth. Let me show you one example with big icons so you really see it. Again, mixing styles, same style. I'm going to put it side by side so it becomes really obvious. And what this means is that you need to spend a couple of more minutes to try to find good, consistent iconography. That's really what you need to do. Okay, visual hierarchy is covered. Typography, we have the visual set. So we have all the tools and ideas on how we should work with slides. Now we just need to design it with purpose. What does this even mean? This one is often overlooked in design, and especially in slide design. I think the reason is because people focus too much on the beautification of slides rather than designing for a specific purpose. And I don't blame them, because we're so used to dull and boring slides that the focus has been on making things look wow, look cool, or making things pop, as many of my designer friends have heard way too many times. The problem with making things pop is that it can actually be counterproductive. And I'm going to show you some examples to demonstrate this. Look at this quote. Design is not just how it looks, it's how it functions. I think this was a quote by Steve Jobs, which is quite ironic because they also designed, his company designed this magic mouse here. And if I would ask you guys, is this a good design, this product, this magic mouse, is it a good design? I think 90%, 95% would probably say, yeah, it's beautiful, a beautiful design product. And I would argue that this is a horrible design, probably the worst design of a computer mouse ever. And before you object, let me show you why. Because this is how you charge the magic mouse. So if you run out of battery, you run out of luck. You can't use the mouse anymore. Apple prioritized beauty over function by hiding all the charging holes on the bottom of this mouse, which is why we've never seen a mouse like this. It's beautiful, but it's not functional at all. And good design should be functional first. Same goes with slides. Good design is not beautiful slides. Good design is functional slides. Good design good design clarifies your message. Let me show you an example. So on the left here, I'm going to show you how bad design can distract from your message. When I first saw this slide, which is from a client, I really had to look at it for 5-10 minutes to try to figure out what are they trying to say here, because it's so unclear to me. And once we got the idea and redesigned it, we understood that this was all they tried to say. With good design, it became so obvious that there's no confusion. But if you look at the before slide, it really is confusing. Let's look at one more. Here again, bad design distracting from my message. Why? Because, well, if you look at it, it looks pretty good. You have a full screen visual, you have some design elements in the corners, and you have a nice flow chart going on. But it really isn't that clear. The flow chart is a bit all over the place. Where is step 2? Where is step 3? You have different sizes of the circles. So how can this be made better? Well, a simple linear process with icons could be a better way of communicating the idea. You don't need to overdo it to try to beautify your slide. If an image in the background is confusing, then drop it. Make sure your message is clear. Let's look at another one. Last year, our revenue grew 400%. We have a rocket flying to reflect growth. We have some money flying around. Beautiful slide, right? But it's not so good. This is a much better slide. A simple slide, an image of trees growing towards the sky to reflect the growth, and a simple line of text. No other fluff. And whenever I talk about this topic, there's always some confusion on what designing with purpose really means. To make it really simple, you should design with your key purpose in mind. For example, look at this project we did last year for our client. This is a very visual design, over the top, bold. Some might even say that it's overwhelming or not clear because the visuals are really grabbing the attention here and they take a lot of room. That is because the key message here with this client was to show that this client's software, called Hype, is nothing the market has ever seen. The client wanted to show that their software can create amazing 3D visuals like no other SaaS business in this industry. So the focus was intentionally on the visuals, not the target audience, not the market size or any of that. That was all in a separate handout. Now with another client, it might be the opposite. Maybe the focus is only on the content to make sure the message is clear, like this one. No distracting design elements or unnecessary stuff, just clean design and clear copy. So when you design, you need to keep this in mind. What's your key purpose? What do you want the people to walk away with, and design around that? With this said, I would say that less is almost always more. You should try to simplify, simplify, simplify. The main reason is because most presentations are overwhelming and designed with the speaker in mind rather than the audience. So if you just go that extra length to clarify your content, make your copy more concise and more sharp, you're already ahead of the game. You've never heard anyone say you made that too easy to understand, right? It's usually the other way around. People complicate things by trying to share too much information or details. So there is a time and place for everything, and we need to keep that in mind when we develop presentations. You shouldn't, for example, give all the details in a sales pitch or an investor pitch. You want to give just enough information to make an impact. Get the prospect to lean in and ask for more. All the details should be given later in the process or in a handout, not in the first meeting. So, what should you take away from my session? Design with your key purpose in mind. If you want to focus on your key points, keep your slides clean. If you want to focus on your visuals, make them great. If you want to focus on you, turn off your slides. And before I turn off my slides, I have some final words I want to make. I actually asked the participants, you guys, what you were thinking of this session, and I'm getting some responses in here. It's saying, Damon, this was absolutely amazing. This was the best thing I've seen in a long time. Someone said, I think I love you. I don't know who that is, but thank you, Boris. But you also say, we have a corporate template where I work. I can't do all the fancy things you just showed me in that template. You're talking about this, right? We usually, when you work in a company, you have some type of template, and it probably has some logo in the corner or some design elements, and it makes it hard to create very visual slides like I'm talking about. So I'm going to give you some tips here. Your company template is meant to be a guideline, not a limitation. If the template hinders you from creating good slides, you should challenge it. And I'm going to show you how. Take a look at this slide. Imagine this is your corporate template. You have a title placeholder with a line below it. You have the company logo in the lower right corner, and you have some design elements in the top right corner. So how do you work with a slide like this? Well, if you would try to stick with the rules and the guidelines, you might create a slide like this, where you have your bullet points in the text placeholder, and you place an image just floating around on the slide without overlapping any of the design elements. That's what we usually see, and it's not very impactful. Breaking the rules would be letting your image cover all the design elements in the background. Maybe you create a half screen visual like this, and you paste the logo on top so it still feels aligned with the rest of the slides. That could be one way of going about. Let's look at one more. Some people ignore the guidelines and they just drop their visual right on top of the visuals in the background. They might even cover the logo because they say, hey, I need to create good slides. I can't just stick to the template. Doesn't look too good. It looks weird. A better way would be to challenge the whole layout. So we keep the template intact, but maybe we don't follow the guidelines of keeping our bullets on the left. Maybe we use the horizontal width instead and place our image in the bottom corner like this. Another one, imagine you have a big statement. Maybe it's a product launch or it's a section break and you want to make a big statement on your slide. Most people would do it like this because you don't have an alternative slide to use, right? You need to stick to the template. This is not as good, is it? Because we have that line for the title there, which doesn't make much sense. And the slide will blend in with the rest of the presentation because it's on white background. It doesn't really stand out. A better way would be to go with a full screen visual. Just paste the image all across the template and place your big statement on top. Would that be too far? Would the company complain? I don't know, but it's worth pushing the limits. Here, for example, we added some blue overlay on the image to still keep that brand feeling intact. And we keep the logo in the same place here. But I definitely think that if you go this route, it's very hard to protest, right? I mean, this is not a bad way of doing it. Ideally, we would have something like this. We would have a template slide that actually, where you can actually drop an image in a matter of seconds and add your statement there. This is a much better way. For a design agency, this is done in a couple of seconds, but unfortunately, most companies don't invest in their templates. And that's the point I want to make. A good template looks like this. Like if you hire a good design agency, they can create a template for you where your team can basically, in a matter of seconds, go from this to this. A beautiful slide where they just drop in their points in placeholders and drag and drop their image in there. Let's look at another one. Again, they can go from this agenda slide to something like this. So you don't have those boring agenda slides, but you can actually create something visual and nice. Let's look at one more example. So a good PowerPoint template is really key, and it can help you give your team superpowers. I don't know how many companies we've created templates for, and they all come back and say, best investment ever. I can't believe we didn't do this before. It is a one-time investment that gives your team superpowers to create good slides. And I want to end my session with a quote that sums up everything I just said. The world rewards the people who are best at communicating ideas, not the people with the best ideas. I started this presentation by saying that bad slides kill good ideas, so I think it makes sense to end with good slides sell ideas. My name is Damon. Feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. Look up my name there, and if you have any questions about presentations or PowerPoint or slide design, I'll stick around and answer that. So thank you so much and hope you like this.
Thank you so much, Damon. This was a fantastic session. I mean, I could see all of the action here in the chat, and people were discussing and sharing, and like literally saying, preach on all of the tips that you're sharing. And honestly, what I really found to be very useful is the fact that all of these tips are also useful to people who are not designers. You do not need to be a designer just to use a very large and impactful picture on your slides. And also what I want to mention, because I think it's important for people to understand it, is something that also Tony Harmer said in the session before you. It's the fact that when you are designing your presentation, you need to take into account who your audience is. And the fact that you're not designing that presentation for you, you're not making that presentation for you, and you're making it for your audience. So there were a few questions here. There is one regarding fonts, because you were showing a lot of fonts, and the fact that we have a company like Font Fabric not just sponsoring the event, but doing a session. It's actually the session after you, and they're going to talk a lot about fonts. But if we take you as a person working with fonts, which is your favorite font and why?
My favorite font, I didn't expect that one. I love sans serif font, which is what you see on my screen. I think for this presentation, I used a font called Sinking Sans, which is oh, I shouldn't have revealed that. Now everybody will download that. But I'm pretty traditional. Helvetica is a great font. Arial is a great font. So I like those types of fonts.
Awesome. And the fact that you also mentioned that we need to challenge the company templates, and when you want to create great design and your template is not allowing you to do that, that's also something that Tony mentioned, and you are very also spot on in that direction. So if anyone is trying to create good design and their template is not making it easier, make sure you challenge it. I definitely take that as a another takeaway from your session. There are again comments that are lining up how great the session was. So everyone, by the way, before we are over, please make sure you go to the Menti tab and vote there. You can vote and rate Damon's session. There was one person who wanted to adopt you, by the way, so you can add that comment to the slides for maybe some of the next sessions you're doing. What I wanted also to ask, and because I see it also here as part of the questions, is here we talk mostly about slides, right? Slides that are supporting the speaker, that are supporting the audience, and that are the speaker is using as supporting elements. But what happens in the situations where you need to send the slides, or when you need to design slides that are to be read by someone? What is your advice there? It might be a bit of a longer topic, and we have a separate session for that, but we would be curious to hear what are your thoughts on that?
Right. The common approach is you try to create one document to fit both purposes, right? We see that
Yeah.
every day. And that's obviously the issue here because those two settings are totally different. My presentation here that I just showed you is over 150 slides, and it's meant it's not usable without me. I'm there to fill in the blanks. Whereas if you guys would ask, can you send me this deck? First off, I would say no. And second, if you would like it, I need to really type in all my speaking notes and make it really usable without me. So I think the approach there is that people need to realize that those are two different ways. A live pitch is not a send out, and you need to treat it as such.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I fully agree. I fully agree with that. And I hope we see much more examples where presentations are being presented and are not being used as send out, and vice versa, obviously. Well, I think we already see what are the results from your session, and people are commenting that it's super practical, super insightful, and super interesting. So thanks a lot for being with us and for doing that session. It really was great. I hope you will be able to stay for some time, and maybe people can also reach out to you through the Hopin platform. And if not, of course, they can reach out to you through LinkedIn or maybe write you an email. I hope no one adopts you. I don't know. I don't know what is your opinion on that, but if you want, I guess there are some offers here. Thank you so much again, Damon, for this very, very nice session. For all of you, we are going actually on a lunch break now, and we have some time until our next session, which is with our friends from Font Fabric. As Damon already mentioned, they are the experts in fonts. So I cannot imagine someone else doing that session and explaining very much in detail why fonts are so important and how you can use them to your advantage. Before that, while you are on your break, because we have a little bit more than an hour, in fact, for the lunch break, have in mind that our sponsors from Mentimeter are doing another demo in their booth. So make sure you go to the expo area and you check their demo, because it's going to be a little bit bigger deep dive than what it was before. And Mentimeter, as you can see, we are using it as part of the Hopin platform, is a fantastic tool. So make sure you go and check it out and see what you can do for your presentations with Mentimeter. You can subscribe to our PTS YouTube channel, because there we are going to be sharing some of the best moments from the conference this year. There are some of the best moments from the conference last year. So make sure you do that. And also you can share all over social media using the hashtag PTS 2022. Thanks a lot to Damon again for the session, and I wish you all a very nice break and see you again soon.